Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act podcast, leveling up your life's journey. I'm going to just welcome our audience back to the Second Act with Michael and John.
Yeah.
And we are really excited about today's guest, who has some really interesting, unique, exciting things going on in her life. So today we welcome Jenny Wood to the show. Jenny is a former Google executive who led a large operations team that helped drive tens of billions of dollars in advertising revenue annually. She founded one of Google's largest career development programs called Own Your Career and has been dedicated to helping others achieve their goals. Jenny is also a writer, speaker, Harvard Business Review writer, and the creator of Big Small Things, a philosophy and newsletter that emphasizes the power of small, daily actions in increasing confidence and fostering success. Jenny's journey, marked by overcoming moments of anxiety and embracing bold actions, has inspired many to pursue their ambitions with confidence. Outside of work, Jenny is a mom, a wife, pilot, outdoor enthusiast, and an unwavering advocate for personal and professional growth. She's also a Colorado local here with John and me, so we're excited to have that connection as well. Welcome to the show, Jenny.
Man.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael and John. Wait, not just a Colorado local, Colorado native. Are either of you from
native?
here?
I am not.
I am not either. But I see a few of those stickers rolling around, and now I can put a face to the sticker.
I know.
Nice.
So for our audience, there's this bumper sticker that says native in like the same imagery as the Colorado license plate, and there just are not a lot of Colorado natives. But I happen to be born here. My parents moved here in 1979, just like 6 months before I was born. So
wow.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, here we are.
I grew up in Miami. John grew up in Oklahoma.
That's right.
Right. And so we definitely come from different parts of the country, but it's amazing what a magnet Colorado is for really cool, talented folks.
Yeah, now there's a tech scene, and we've got this amazing weather. It's like I hike every day, 4:30 p.m. It's heaven, little slice of heaven.
It is, absolutely.
We were on a hike yesterday. We actually got to watch, we went to the air show on Saturday, went on a hike yesterday to watch the air show from a different vantage point. I was like, man, we are so blessed that we can just do this on a daily basis, and I love it.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
The pilot in me appreciates that.
I want to know more about that, but I'm not going to steal everyone's thunder because Google, I've heard about it. I don't really know what it is, but I mean, no.
Small little startup.
Yeah.
It's just a little startup.
One day it's going to be huge. I know
I think.
One day, yeah. Actually, I believe Google is celebrating their 20-year anniversary this year of going public, and you joined not too long after the company went public. Is that right, Jenny?
That's right. I joined in November 2006, and I just wrapped up 18 years there, and it was an incredible 18 years at an unbelievable company.
How did you get started so early?
That's funny. I was doing research at Harvard Business School, 1 year negotiations, 1 year organizational behavior, and 1 year technological substitution. So like strategy, people stuff, and negotiation stuff. And then I lived abroad for a year and backpacked around South America. I came back, I was 26, and I was like, all right, HBS kind of felt like an extension of college.
Yeah.
Living abroad, where I was teaching indoor cycling classes and doing an array of other kind of small, odd jobs, didn't quite feel like real life. And then I was traveling, and so I came back and realized, all right, I guess I got to get a big girl job. But the idea of sitting in some like dark, dim office where you went in at 8 and left at 5 and punched in and punched out and worked on TPS reports or whatever, like the canonical office space, jokes are. It felt so sad to me. And I didn't know much about the real world or the real working world, but I kept saying, I just want to work someplace fun. I just want to work someplace fun. And there were all these news segments, but with the lava lamps and the beanbag chairs and the colors and the free massages. And I was like, I just want to work someplace like Google. I had no idea what Google did to make money. Well, no, I didn't really know how they made money. And again, this was 2006. And so I just Googled Google jobs. And I saw this job. I saw they had an office, this like tiny office in Denver, and applied for a role that seemed related to my economics degree, because it was an analytical type of role, and went through the whole barrage of hard interviews and landed the gig.
Wow. That's awesome.
Do you remember, did they ask at that time any of those sort of random non-work related questions? And do you remember what your question was?
I sure do. How would you sell pantyhose to men?
Interesting.
Bank robbers.
Yeah. I went like the king's route, like the, royalty, like white tights. I went that direction, but it's really around, creativity and how you think through problems and how you process it and how you segment, your answers and ask follow-up questions.
Wow.
So at least that was what I found my experience to be. So it was a lot of fun.
I love that you remember the question from all.
It's pretty specific.
Yeah, it is pretty specific. And you probably have not been asked that again in your life.
It's funny that you asked me that, because my dad happened to bring it up like a couple of weeks ago. He remembered it, and he reminded me. I was like, yeah, I totally remember. But yeah, what a journey. It's just been an incredible experience there. And now I'm on to my second act.
Yeah.
You're on to your second act.
So you just left, and what does that look like after spending so much time with Google and being so successful and such a big company? What's on the horizon? I'm not trying to skip ahead, but I am. But
yeah. So writing and speaking and training and workshops at corporations and organizations and schools and nonprofits who are excited about keeping people excited about what they're doing, whether it's work or volunteer or being a student, and helping people achieve their goals unapologetically.
That's awesome.
And I love the unapologetic aspect of what you're doing, because your life story includes you chasing someone down New York subway that I think gave you that fire to chase after the things you want in life. So I don't know if you want to touch on your story real quick for our audience, but at least that maybe it was the kernel of what set your career path ablaze there.
Yeah, well, how I met my husband definitely impacted my outlook on life. And the short story there is that I was riding the C train home from work on the New York City subway in 2011. I was sitting, and about 20, 30 feet away from me was this really good-looking guy. And I thought, all right, if he gets off at my stop, then I'll try to strike up a conversation with him. And if not, then say la vie. So he gets off at the next stop, which was not my stop. He got off the train. The new people got on the train. And I was like, all right, that's the universe telling me it wasn't meant to be. And then I had this moment of clarity where I said, no, forget the universe. And I ran off that train.
Wow.
And it was the middle of a blizzard, so I was all disheveled with my puffy jacket, not looking like my absolute top. But I chased to catch up with him, and I tapped him on the shoulder as he was exiting the station. I said, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you. He said, that's okay, you seem nice. And I said, I am nice. I said, you were on my train, and I thought you were cute. Any chance I could give you my business card? And he said, hi, I'm John. And the rest is history. We've been married now almost 11 years, and we have a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter.
Wow,
and he's awesome. He's
amazing.
So awesome.
Congratulations.
So you got to take risks in life, right?
You do.
If you sit and idly let life pass you by, you'll never get the big stuff. You'll never get the great relationship. You'll never get the big job. You'll never get the promotion. You'll never get that experience of living abroad or that thing you want to do that you're too scared to do. But when you take life by the horns, you can create the life you want.
That's right.
Absolutely. What do you think holds people back the most? I mean, there's fear. There's like the natural fear of doing something that you're uncomfortable doing for the first time. for whatever those reasons are. But what else do you think might influence that restraint on people from achieving what they want?
I think it is fear. I think that was the first word that came to you, Michael, and that's the first one that came to me before it even came out of your mouth. I think a lot about truths and tales. Truths are facts that are verifiable, and tales are the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of those facts.
Yeah.
So if you look at that subway example, the truth was there is a person on this subway and I am interested in him. The tale I could have told myself was nobody talks to a stranger on a subway. I'm sure he's married. I'm sure he'll think I'm weird. I don't want to make a big scene.
Uh-huh.
But those were truths. They weren't facts. The facts were I was sitting there, he was standing there, and we're two people on a subway.
Yeah.
So if you flip the truth to a more empowering truth, like maybe he'll be flattered, could be a new truth I told myself, or maybe he is single, or maybe he is coming back from a networking event where 2 other women gave him their numbers, which actually happened to be the case that day.
No way.
No way. He was having a good day.
That's a confidence builder for you to know that you won.
Yeah, totally. So, so that's an example of a truth and a tale and how I could have chosen the negative tale or the positive tale. Or if you look at a work example, a tale could be, let's say that you didn't get a role that you were excited about. The truth is you did not get that job offer. The tale you could tell yourself is, I'm never going to get another one. This is probably the wrong industry. I should be embarrassed to ever interview again. I shouldn't ask them for feedback. Whereas an alternative tale that you could tell yourself that's more empowering could be, I didn't have the exact background they needed. This is nothing personal. I should continue the relationship with them because it might lead to something else. And everything is networking, and it was a great opportunity to meet them at the interview, right? Same truth at core. You applied for a role, you didn't get it, but you could have 2 diametrically opposed tales that you tell yourself about the outcome of that and what you can do next.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because the world is like over-indexed to success stories, and then the 1 out of 10 success stories gets sort of highlighted in all these different formats and told so many times over and over again that it drowns out the failures that ultimately lead to the success over time?
Yeah, we're certainly a society that puts a lot of emphasis on success and fame and fortune and how to crush it in life. I think we're starting as corporate leaders to tap more into failure and regret and different ways that empathy can show up in those forms. And I think it's hard. It's still hard for leaders because when you talk about failures and you lead a team, you're almost highlighting your team's failure who reports to you. So this is something I struggle with as a leader at Google. It's like, I knew that we should be talking about failures because that's what leaders do now, right? Like that's in vogue to talk about risk and talk about failures and talk about resilience. But then, let's say we launched, just for a silly example, let's say we launched a vanilla ice cream line and it totally bombed. I don't know why a vanilla ice cream line would bomb. Let's pick something different. Let's say
because it's vanilla.
We launched. Right. Yeah, exactly. It was a little too vanilla. Yeah, the
too much
saturated
competition.
Market. Okay, we're going to go with vanilla. It was a saturated market.
Yeah.
But then, to celebrate that failure, we launched our new vegan vanilla ice cream flavor and it totally bombed. You are potentially at risk of throwing, 35 people under the bus who worked on that vegan vanilla ice cream launch and they were so excited about it. So it's easy to talk a big game as leaders and be like, we're going to talk about our failures. But when you lead a team, the failure is kind of in part the team's failure. So that makes it difficult. And there are still ways you can do it. Like I would like to reward my team for innovation, even if it was a failed project. And then people could nominate each other and nominate themselves about a project that they tried. And maybe it wasn't this huge product line launch, right? But something they tried that didn't go as well or a learning. But that was always the category where we'd get the fewest nominations. If there was like a teamwork category and a failure category and a stakeholder manager category and a customer category, of course, of those 4 categories, the one that would get the least nominations would be I failed. So it's just hard. Yeah. It's hard for people to talk about failures, but it's so important.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we're starting to move toward that more in corporations.
Jenny, is there a story in your life, maybe in childhood or early development before Google, where you failed and and it comes back to be a cornerstone in your story or something that you now impart on other people?
Yeah, so many.
What's a good
many.
one? I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I love talking about my failures. Actually, there's so many that come to mind from the recent years, because I think when you become a leader, like there's just so much more exposure to big solving opportunities and so many more things. But I remember actually seeing a cast list in high school where I wanted to be Adelaide in Guys and Dolls, and I saw the cast list go up and I got chorus, and it was something I was working so hard for and preparing my song and perfecting my dance for the audition. And it's more, the reason that one comes to mind is because it's such a different example than a work example, but the feeling in your stomach of seeing that cast list go up and all the kids in high school are crowding around it and almost like elbowing each other out of the way as the director pins it on the bulletin board in the hall of the music department.
Yeah.
And just like scanning and not seeing your name where you want to see your name. And it's that drop in your stomach, that feeling of I'm not good enough, or I didn't work hard enough, or why not me, or what didn't I do? Like all this shame and all this regret and all this disappointment in myself. And that feeling, that visceral sensation in your body is the exact same sensation of getting negative feedback at work, or not getting the role, or not getting the promotion, or even sometimes in more of a day-to-day example is being in a meeting where you say something and you think, oh, are people judging me for that? Like that's the stuff that happens 27 times a day.
Yeah.
Did it come out wrong? Do people think I'm stupid? Do they think I'm not working hard enough? Do they think I don't deserve to be here? It's like imposter, imposter, imposter. And the reason that the Guys and Dolls not getting the Adelaide part, who's the alto, like the lead alto, she sings this great song called Alto's Lament, is that feeling in your body is just so similar to what we experience, frankly, I think like all day long at work.
Two things. The first question I come back to is when you didn't get that role, did you have the self-motivation to like look for other things to inspire and make you happy and feel accomplished, or did your parents sort of come by your side and provide the encouragement and confidence for you to keep going? Like, tell us about the mindset there and how you got over that.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, Michael, because I think another formative part of my development was how positive my parents were. So I don't remember the specifics that day when I came home, but because their vibe was very positive, I'm sure that they were encouraging. Well, they have very different styles. My dad is like a hard-charging Eastern European businessman, and my mom is a very soft and fuzzy therapist. So I had the yin and the yang. But even though my dad's style was different, he was always my number one fan. Like, I remember this other moment on an airplane ride where I was just learning long division. Maybe it was fourth grade. I don't know. When do you learn long division? And I had this little analog handheld computer game. And he said, if you can get all 100 questions right without missing one, I'll give you $100, which in, 1988, 1989, that was like a lot of money. Yeah. And so this was like a big deal. And I remember him saying to me, I'm challenging you to do this because I know that you can. Nice. I'm challenging you to do this because I know that you can. And just think of what that can mean to a kid, that vote of confidence, that encouragement, that inspiration, that message from someone you look up to and admire, like a mom or a dad, that believes in you. And so and I did get them right. And he came home with 100 single dollar bills. I will never forget that. Nice. 100 crisp single dollar bills, not a single $100 bill. And so I think there, whatever they said to me that day that I didn't get the lead in Guys and Dolls, I'm sure it was encouraging because that was their style. And it's very much influenced how I would speak to my team, coach people one-on-one. And it's what I'm so excited to do now in this next phase of life, which is helping lift people as I rise, helping other people feel more confident, helping people see their full potential. I mean, to me, a good coach is someone who helps somebody see that they can be better than even they think they can be as the coachee. Yeah.
They believe in them. I mean, it goes back to what you said and learned as a as a child. Your parents believed in you, and they're sort of your closest network, and maybe still are, and carrying that forward and using that mindset to instill confidence in others is super powerful. And so the things that you're doing now in your second act with folks who are maybe they missed out on that promotion that they really wanted, or they're too afraid to try something new, or they're too afraid to speak up in a meeting because they don't want to be judged, because your whole life is based on being judged about something, raising your hand and answering a question in class, or trying out for a sports team, or trying out for a part in a play, or trying to get into college. I mean, it's just one thing after another. But in today's society, there's more openness to being vulnerable and sharing the good and the bad stories. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on in your practice on how you're living that with your audience, your growing audience and follower base now.
Yeah, well, you touched on this, and we've all touched on this together a little bit, is just those day-to-day moments. And that's why my newsletter is called Big Small Things, right? And you talk a lot on this podcast about the 1% changes, getting 1% better, doing things that are just 1% incremental or different than how you did them yesterday. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a lot of what I train and coach on in my newsletter with corporations or organizations or individuals. A lot is, it's common sense. It's just rarely common practice, right?
That's a great way to describe it.
It's common sense. It's rarely common practice.
Yeah.
So if we take an example of, my decision to leave Google, it's like it could feel or seem really risky, and I could live in fear. I'm at like what feels like the height of my career, right? Like I'm like in a really good spot. I've built really cool things at the company, and here I am going off to be an entrepreneur. Like what is that? But then if you really break it down, is it really that risky? Sure, we go back to truths and tales. Truth is, I'll probably make less money to start than my Google executive salary. But the tale I could tell myself is, I'm never going to be able to pay my mortgage. I'm the main breadwinner of the family. And that's a dramatic catastrophized, or in psychology we'd call it, fortune telling or catastrophizing. And that is a tale that I'm telling myself. Or I could look at an alternative tale and say, we've had 5-7 conversations with our financial advisor, and this is absolutely a sound financial decision to do this. And it's one that will give me enhancement, not just security. It's one that will set me up for so much happiness, so much impact. And even if you break down the different ways we approach a risk, it's something that feels like a risk oftentimes is not really that risky. I think of risk along 4 dimensions: emotional risk, physical risk, cognitive risk, and financial risk. Yep. So if I were to rate each of those 1 to 5, on the decision to leave Google, emotional risk, I don't know, maybe call it a 2, right? It's very exciting. I'm going to be able to spend more time with my family. 5 is high, 1 is low. Cognitive risk, that's probably a 3. There's a lot I'm thinking through of, how I sell myself up as a successful keynote speaker and entrepreneur and blogger and, writer and trainer and coach. And so there's a lot of cognition that goes into that. Physical risk, very, very, very low, right? Like, do I think that this decision is going to give me cancer or make me at risk of losing a limb? We'll call that a 0 out of 5. And then financial risk, this is the one I already talked about, where you can really have some gremlins and some false stories that make you want to stay on the path you've always been on. But the financial risk, without kind of deep prodding and probing, like conversations with a financial advisor, the financial risk you might think at face value, that's a 5 out of 5 because being an entrepreneur is way more financially risky and lumpier income than this steady paycheck. Right. But then if you open up the portfolio and you look at all the savings and the smart decisions you've made, that financial risk is not nearly as high as you think. So as I evaluated across emotional risk, physical risk, cognitive risk, and financial risk, it really became a no-brainer. And then you just have to, again, tweak the tale to align with the truth.
This episode is brought to you by Batiste Dry Shampoo. Whether you're on the go, at the gym, or getting ready for a night out, Batiste has a dry shampoo for you. Refresh with over 10 signature fragrances. Or try Batiste Hint of Color, a tinted dry shampoo that seamlessly blends with your hair. Need an extra boost? Try Batiste Dry Shampoo with added benefits like volumizing, texturizing, and more. Buy Batiste now, in-store or online at your nearest retailer.
Jenny, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the 4 areas that you analyze risk, but I also want to ask, was there a fear or a risk of staying? Because I like to think that
good question.
There's also that risk that what if I don't pursue the things that are bigger or outside of Google or outside of what I'm currently doing that I might never achieve if I stay here and continue, quote unquote, the status quo or continue what I'm doing just because it's comfortable. Because a lot of times we see and hear individuals just like yourself that stay so long that are worried about, all the other risks that they push off their dream. They push off what they feel they've given up to get the title, to get, the lifestyle, things like that. So was there a risk of staying?
It's a brilliant question. And I wish I could just show you my spreadsheet of the risk analysis, because in addition to scoring 1 to 5 across these 4 dimensions, emotional, cognitive, physical, and financial, of leaving, I also, as I was going through it and realized how low these 4 categories were ranking when I was thinking it through leaving, I then realized, wait a second, let's do the flip side and also rank them for staying. And for everyone listening, my eyes lit up so much when you asked this question, John. It was really significant, because you have the risk of, for me, learning is a huge, huge, huge strength for me, and like Clifton StrengthsFinder. And I was experiencing incremental learning. It's Google. You learn every day. It's so fast paced. So many new cool things are happening. But was I experiencing step function learning? Not really. And that's what I knew I would experience as an entrepreneur. And is there even a physical risk? I would say more physical risk, because I was trying to do so much, and I wasn't sleeping well, and my stress was really high, and I had hip pain. And I'm not saying that this is just these are all a result of doing too much, right? And I love Google and I loved my job there. And so it was very tempting to want to do everything at the same time, right? Pursue my passions outside of work, pursue all of these ambitions I had. But at the end of the day, I am only one human, and there are only 24 hours in a day. That is truth. That is not tale.
Right.
That is an undeniable fact. It's verifiable. And so I would say, as I really started to deeply analyze, the risks almost seemed higher to staying. And it's for all the same reasons you mentioned, John, and that makes it really exciting.
That's awesome.
By the way, let's be honest. Still a little scary that I'm doing this. We're on mile 1 here. And so I have to say, even having this conversation is therapeutic and helpful to really settle into this decision and this new way forward for me, which I just think has tremendous potential.
I'll speak for myself and maybe others, and maybe you're even thinking this, Jenny, is okay, I'm leaving behind this incredible career. I've spent, all these years in this industry, most of them in this one of the world's most prestigious companies. I'm starting something on my own. If we're talking about the very positive, outlook we're having, but there is a greater than 0% chance it won't work out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then I think people in their heads get in their heads that, what if I can't go back? What if there's no other options? I've just burned some bridges. I can't figure out a path forward. Now I'm stuck. Now I'm getting anxious. Now I'm getting a little concerned about all the things in my life. How are you tempering those demons, or what advice do you give to others who are having those demons in their head so that they remain cool, calm, and collective as they move forward?
Yeah, well, let's be real. I'm not going to say that I'm cool, calm, and collected, but I can certainly speak to this. So for every statement that I would write down, like I could never get another job again, I could write a different statement, right? I could write a column with that statement, and then I could write let's call that the gremlin statement, and then in the next column we could call it the sunshine statement, right? And so it might be I could never get another job again. The sunshine statement might be I am highly employable, right? The gremlin statement might be it's going to take 2 years before I'm revenue net positive. The sunshine statement might be, given my track record, it'll probably take me about a quarter of the time as the typical person who goes to be an entrepreneur, right? So again, I feel like I'm getting back to truths and tales now, but so much is about mindset shift. And again, maybe this links to my dad on that flight where I was in the window seat at 8 or 9 years old and he was in the middle seat, and he said, I believe in you. I know you can do it. And so maybe it's me taking myself through those own thought exercises of I can do this. My husband's incredibly supportive. I've got some really big and exciting projects coming up that I'll start to share more about on the newsletter. And I think it's staying out of drama. I really think it's staying out of drama. And also it's not being self-deprecating. It's like, in 11th grade chemistry class, it was cool to go in and be like, oh, I didn't study at all. Like, I'm sure I'm going to fail. Oh my gosh, I got an A-. How did that happen? And so I think at a very young age, we try to be cool and not stand out and not brag and not make it seem like we're working hard. But no, I work really freaking hard. And I'm proud of it, and I'm going to continue to work hard. I think I've left my 9 to 5 to start at 24/7. So I think given the track record and my passion and my obsession with what I'm doing and my dedication, I think I will be successful. And then I'm also a realist. And if it doesn't work, I'll think of this as a 2 to 3 year sabbatical where I go try to launch some really amazing things and help hopefully millions of people go after what they want and get it. And if it doesn't work, I can brush up the resume and go back and get another job.
Jenny, Michael and I have talked about this before, but when somebody like yourself or somebody that is starting in their next act, when they have that imposter syndrome or they feel like they aren't going to make it, we like to talk about when you list out all those successes, the successes when you first started, all the way to the successes when you were just leaving Google. The list is probably super long and lengthy and extraordinary. And when you lay those all out and you're able to replay all those victories that you've had, you have that attitude when you come back. Of course I'm going to be successful. Look at all the other things I just did or I've done over my 18-year career or, whatever. Or look at what I just achieved when I was starting out. And so you're right. When you remove some of those absolutes of I'm never going to be as successful again, or I'm never going to make as much money, and you remove those of I'm just not going to make as much money when I start out, or I might not, it becomes so much more achievable, like you just said, in the mindset shift.
Yeah. And what you're speaking about is a growth mindset. Carol Dweck does amazing work around this. And it's all about the word yet. You add the word yet to the end of any sentence to turn it from a gremlin sentence into an empowering statement. So I don't make as much money as I want as an entrepreneur, period. Or I don't make as much money as I want as an entrepreneur yet.
Yeah, and not to digress too much, but I like this show on the History Channel called Alone. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this show called Alone. But they basically pluck people out of society and drop them in these incredibly remote areas to survive on their own for an undetermined amount of time. And the person who survives the longest gets a fairly large cash prize. And in each episode, they have a quote, and they have some pretty inspiring quotes. And one that comes to mind that is related to the stuff we're talking about was a Tanzanian proverb that said, little by little, a little becomes a lot. And I think it ties really nicely into some of the things that you started now, like Big Small Things. So tell us, Jenny, a little bit about the exciting things that you've already launched and maybe hinting towards some of the things to come.
Yeah. So I have a newsletter called Big Small Things where It is all about getting what you want in life, chasing what you want unapologetically, little micro changes you can make each day to speak up in a meeting or to tackle a project that your boss gives you within 24 hours by creating a document that just has a couple of key categories like goals, stakeholders to meet, self-imposed deadline, so that you don't get scared to make it perfect and come back to them a week later. It's about these teeny tiny little shifts, these big small things we can do, asking what and how questions versus yes or no questions to get more out of a networking conversation. I offer scripts around how to ask for a mentor. I talk about the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. That, in a nutshell, is mentors speak to you, sponsors speak about you. They're usually in a position of power. They're talking about you behind closed doors. They're advocating for you. So all these kinds of things. I also have a lot of stuff I talk about in terms of being a mom and what it's like to be a working parent. So all these things are ideas that I share in my newsletter, Big Small Things, which comes out every Tuesday. And it's been really, really fun to watch it grow.
Well, I really want you to spend 30 seconds about talking about being a pilot, because not many people put that on their bio. And so that is a incredibly immersive environment. It's not forgiving. And there's so much to learn, like being an entrepreneur, where you almost feel that you're behind the power curve before you even start. And how do I get started? There's so much I need to learn. And oh man, so many other people know all this other stuff. How do you just start? How do you just jump into that like you would be an entrepreneur? Or do you find a coach? Do you find a mentor? Do you find a sponsor? Tell me about that.
Yeah. To me, it's two things. It's training and passion. Let's take the passion first. I love to fly. I've always loved to fly as a passenger, and I've always been fascinated by the fact that a plane can stay in the sky. The concept of lift is fascinating to me. So I've always wanted to get my pilot's license. Then from that, I decided, let's just go out and do it. I think that's maybe a differentiator for me. I have very little gap between stimulus and action. Stimulus is I want to be a pilot, and then action follows really close behind. A lot of people have stimulus. I want to do this. I want to change industries. I want to get this job. I want to move to Switzerland for a year. And then there's a massive gap between that stimulus and action. My gap is really small. So I had that passion. I had that desire. And then I go out and do the training. I just literally sign up. I want to do it. I happened to be living in Ann Arbor at the time while my husband, John, was in business school. I was bored of waiting for him to propose to me. So I said, I'm going to go get my pilot's license. This is a perfect time to do it. There's a small municipal airport an 8-minute drive from here. And I found an amazing coach named Jane, and she was just an incredible CFI, certified flight instructor. And I flew maybe 3 or 4 times a week until I got my license. Ground school is hard. Oral exams for pilots are hard. Flying is easy. Landing a plane is quite difficult. And then you just get the reps in, you do the training, you put in the time, you put in the dedication, you learn, you get excited about it, you push through when things are hard. Mechanical was very hard for me. Weather was very hard for me. Other modules were easier. And you just keep doing it till you get it. And I will say there is nothing, immersive is the right word, John. There is nothing more immersive, focused, and enjoyable than flying a small plane. You just can't be distracted by your texts, by your email, by the pings and dings and rings, as author of Indistractable Nir Eyal puts it. And you're just in it. You're fully present. And there are so few activities in life these days where you are fully present. And it's just really fun to play a plane.
It's interesting you mentioned the pings, rings, and dings. It was when I was flying and I looked down because I got a text. And I looked down at my phone and started looking out the window, thinking about how I was going to respond. Then I thought, oh my gosh, my head's not in the game. My head's not in the cockpit.
Wait, are you also a pilot?
I was, yeah. I was a 20-year helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
But it was during that flight that I realized I need to be doing something else, because the whether it was the passion or the excitement, I recognized was waning, and I needed to move on. So that's ultimately what forced me out of the Marine Corps. But I really, really love the fact that you talk about that margin between wanting to do something and doing it, because that's what I realized when I first got out of the Marine Corps, and I felt so valuable to individuals, was the ability for myself to just start something, and then let's learn on the way. I call it ready, fire, aim. Let's get the bullet out of the chamber, and then we'll course correct before it hits the target. But let's get action going. And there's so many people that want to collect all the data, want to hear all the experiences, want to figure out what all they don't know, and they get that paralysis by analysis. So they just stop because they realize they don't have what someone else has. And here you are leaving Google, starting to become an entrepreneur, and you're also somebody that went from 0 flight hours to getting their pilot license. That takes a ton of action, takes a lot of discipline. So in multiple avenues, multiple scenarios, you are taking the passion or the idea of something and putting action behind it and becoming. And I love that, because so many people need to hear that it's okay to fail, or it's okay to get what I call the dirty reps in, the speaking gigs where you're on stage in front of 5 people or 50 people, and there's the awkward pauses, and there's the blank stares, and there's the delayed applause, because it's just not there yet. That's okay. That is okay, because one day you look back at those events and you look back at how far you've come, the 1%, the big, small steps that took you to greatness, and you achieved it again.
Yeah. And so much of it is also about happiness. I think we forget that happiness can be an anchor, and it makes me really deeply happy to stand in front of a room of 20 people, 200 people, 2,000 people, to feel like I'm inspiring people to go after what they want and get it, and to be helping people have mindset shifts and think about things more positively, or think about risks in a different way, or think about courage in a different way, and think about, going against the grain, or, being a nonconformist, to write and help people at scale through, LinkedIn posts or my weekly newsletter, to lead workshops with rooms of people where we can be interactive and we can work on practical, tactical action steps that they can apply that afternoon. It all makes me deeply happy, and that's something that it's okay to optimize for.
That's good. That's good. Jenny, we're coming to the end of our time, and in order to leave everyone with just another nugget, one last nugget before we let you go, we like to end with practical advice that you can give somebody that's contemplating getting out of their Google environment, their Google moment, just like you, getting started in the second act in their life. What would you want to leave them as you're doing that right now? Maybe it's something you've learned, maybe it's something you're looking forward to experience, and maybe it's a fear you've let go of now that you're in that journey. What would you tell those people that are following right behind you?
So it was something that my executive coach shared with me when we were working through all this, and I was sharing so much. And it's a Buddhist saying that loosely translates to this simple 2-word phrase, which is circumstances change.
Yep.
Circumstances change. And even though I thought that I would be at Google till I retired, let's call it 15 more years, and I never envisioned any other way, circumstances change. Good. And you can adjust today's goals to be something different than yesterday's vision.
It's the OODA loop, Michael.
It is. I practice meditation, John, and that brings you very sort of centered and in the moment. And I think when you're able to get to the place where you're very present around what's going on, and you're very aware of the circumstances and yourself, you know how to adapt around what's happening and find that next step forward, wherever that may take you. And then the step after that and the step after that. not knowing where you're going to wind up. But if you've read The Alchemist, which is a really popular, well-known book, you learn that it's much more about the journey than the destination.
Yeah.
And
definitely,
I think that's great advice to leave our audience with, Jenny.
Amazing way to end.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. If there are individuals that want to reach out and see what else you're doing or learn about your business or learn about your speaking or your newsletter, where can they do that?
They can go to itsjennywood.com/newsletter. It's Jennywood, ITSJENNYWOOD.com/newsletter. And a big thank you to everyone listening today. You could have chosen to spend the last 45 minutes anywhere, and you chose to spend it here with us. Big
That's
thanks
true.
to you.
Absolutely. And you did a great job with your website, and the information you're sharing is awesome. Really practical, helpful advice for anybody who wants to pursue something in life. So thank you so much for coming on, Jenny. It's been a pleasure getting to meet you. Hopefully we get to meet in person sometime soon when you have a break, whatever that is. But we're certainly honored to have you on and to share your story today.
Well, thanks so much for having
Jenny.
me.
Thanks.
We'll see you guys later.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.